Welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk. John Duggan with you through to 5 o'clock this evening. 53106 for your text messages. Delighted to be joined by a man who hopes to be at the Winter Olympics for Ireland in 2022 in Beijing. Brendan Doyle, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me here.
The Winter Olympics?
Yeah.
We don't have any snow here.
No, well, we're having a bit today, but no, not really. So I have to go hunting for a bit of snow. Yeah.
The skeleton. Yeah. What is the skeleton? When I think of the skeleton, I think of being on a dining tray, hurtling down miles in the snow like a bobsleigh circuit. Well, what is the skeleton?
It's a tad bit more technical than a dining tray, but the idea is basically the track is an ice track. So if you think of maybe a water slide, you know, that corner that picks you up, we'll go down like an ice track, the same as a bobsled would. If you've seen Cool Runnings, it's the exact same track. We'll go down that track on a flat sled with two metal bars we call runners. And what we'll do is at the top of the track, we'll push the sled with one hand, then jump onto our stomachs. And then the driving aspect of the sport begins. So we'll use our shoulders and our knees to twist the sled to turn it in corners. We can use our head as a wind sail, kind of like if you stick your hand out of a car, it kind of takes the wind. Or we can actually tap our toes to kind of cause a dramatic change in the sled angle. Unlike motor racing, we don't have brakes or acceleration, so we're trying to generate as much speed as possible throughout. So there's a kind of a balance between steering too much and letting the sled go. We do all of this head first, feeling 6 G's of pressure pushing down on our body in the corner. So your head will be pitted. So there's very, very rare often we won't even see what we're doing because our head is pitted in on the ice, and we'll hit speeds of up to 145, 146 kilometres an hour.
How did you get into this discipline?
I started off playing football as a kid, and then went to secondary school, and I got into track and field. So my athletics team, Raheny Shamrocks, we were trained up in Morton Stadium. The bobsled team were trained at the same time. They saw that I was decent over 60 metres, and they asked me if I wanted to give it a go. So I did. I started pushing the sled on a track, on a set of wheels like you would see in Cool Runnings, and they took me off to Innsbruck in Austria, and I got my first taste of ice. Stood at the top of a track. Some guy just put me on the sled, kicked me off, said bye-bye Ireland, and that was my first taste of the sport.
How much of a buzz was it?
Oh, absolutely loved it. Like,
was it terrifying?
It's terrifying before. So like when you're at the top of the track and you're thinking about it, like the butterflies and like there's a bit of fear. But as soon as you're on the sled, you don't have time to think, so it's not as scary. And then when you get to the bottom, you're just buzzing to get back up top and do it again. So you're kind of like, there's a lot of emotions going through it.
So Cool Runnings is this movie about the Jamaicans and John Candy that they went to. I actually haven't seen it, but I know all about it.
Yeah.
So that's obviously how successful it was. Had you seen it before you started this?
I did, yeah, and that was it was wild because that race took place in Calgary, in Canada. So my first time out in Calgary, I'm kind of like, I kind of recognise this track, and they actually had the bobsled from the movie there too. So it was kind of like just a little nod to it. But yeah, it was true events. I didn't crash like they did, so that's good. But yeah, same track, same sport. Just we go down on a different vehicle. How
much of a buzz is it when you're going that fast?
It's such a, like, you're in the zone, so you're in this flow state. We hear a lot of athletes talking about flow state. When we get on the sled, the idea is just to do the right amount of steering at the right amount of time. And when you get it right, you just feel everything, like you feel the wind pick up and the sled just feels lighter underneath you. And when you're hauling and when you're like sending it, it's a fantastic feeling. But the caveat is if you push it too hard, you're going to feel it when you hit a wall. And when we hit a wall, It's ice, and the suit that we're wearing is just thin lycra. You know, it's fit for the window of Ann Summers kind of job. There's not much protection. It's literally there just for aerodynamics. So when we hit hard. So that's a part of the thrill as well. But for me at this stage in my career, I'm after the speed. I'm after pushing it as hard as I can.
What is the difference between it and bobsleigh?
So bobsleigh, they go down in, I like to call it a steel coffin. They'll come down in like a kind of a cocoon, and the driver will steer with two kind of ropes. They'll pull on a rope, If they want to go left, they pull left. If they want to go right, they pull right. Skeleton, we lay flat. We take different lines because bobsled will weigh 600 kilos, where we would weigh 120 combined. So the sleds act differently in the corners. There's more risk for us because when we come off, the bobs sit in their sled and they're kind of protected a little bit. So I prefer skeleton. It's more, I see as skeleton drivers as the doctors, and I see, the bobsledders a little bit more as construction workers. They just get in and they just send it, and there's less finesse. With skeleton, there's a lot more finesse in what we do.
How long does it take for a skeleton race to start to finish?
It depends on the tracks, because, you can go to St. Moritz, which is the world's only natural track, which they'll take snow and ice from the Alps, bring it down, craft it by hand every year, and the runs can take, it's a 2-point-something kilometre track, the runs can take up to 70, 80 seconds, or you could go to a place like Königssee in Germany, where it's a shorter track, and you're talking at about 51, 52 seconds, so it kind of ranges track to track.
Clifton Wriothesley.
Yes.
I remember him in 2002 at the Salt Lake City Olympics.
Yeah.
Was fourth and nearly made a medal for Ireland at the games.
Yeah.
Did you know Clifton when you started this? When did you first encounter him?
Clifton was actually one of the guys who got me into the sport.
Right.
Yeah. So when I kind of transitioned from the push training we were doing in Morton Stadium in Santry, Clifton was actually on hand out in Austria. And he was basically, he got sleds organised, and he was there we'd do track walks. We'd walk down the track to inspect what the ice looks like, if it's changed. And when you're going to a track for the first time, you'd have Clifton with you, let's say, and he would point out, this is where the pressure hits and this is where you need to steer, all this kind of stuff. So he was out there on hand teaching us the basics of the sport, and he's kind of always answering the phone, put it that way. So he's definitely maintained a keen eye on sliding sports in Ireland.
Did he help you because you narrowly missed out on qualification for Korea for the last Winter Olympics? Because he finished fourth, did he help you with just coping with that a bit?
I have a really strong family out on ice, multiple nations. We're all in the same boat together. So Sean Greenwood, who competed for us in 2014 in Sochi, he's been one of the biggest kind of drivers for my career at the moment. And there's a few other sliders from different nations who have done multiple Olympics, and they were all there just to basically help me get through it, because it was a really, really tough time for me, and I asked a lot of questions of myself, and to have that kind of voice of experience guide me through that this is normal, this is fine, it's happened to me, and now I've had 2 games since, and looking back on it, I wasn't ready. So that really helped me kind of pull my socks back up, weather the storm, get back on my sled and push harder.
The reason why we're speaking to you, one of the reasons, Brendan, is because of your funding that you're receiving now from the Olympic Federation of Ireland, Team Ireland, for 2022. This is going to make a huge difference to your preparations.
Oh, it's an absolute lifeline. Put things into perspective, skeleton it's like Formula 1 on ice. We've got multiple teams. These teams have pit mechanics, engineers, scientists, coaches, physios, sports psychologists. They have multiple different pieces of equipment that they can test on the day for the different types of ice. And then you have the Buchel from North Dublin on his own, kind of trying to make the best of what he has. I've had to make the decision of not staying in accommodation and sleep in my car so I can pay for the next days of training. We pay per run. So a run on a skeleton track can cost up to €40. So you're talking maybe €600 for a week's training. So I would have to make these decisions between buying equipment, sleeping in accommodation or my car. And now having the Solidarity Grant means that I can now buy equipment which will help me be more competitive. I can extend my pre-season training to get myself accustomed to sliding again after my winter break or my summer break. I can extend my post-season training. I can make decisions like where I want to race based on performance and not what can I afford. And then it also makes the sponsorship and donations go further, because I'm completely reliant on outside funding at this stage. I've funded myself the last 3 seasons, so at this stage I'm completely tapped and I need the help. So having solidarity grants makes every donation and every sponsor's contribution go further.
Did you have a day job before you got the sponsorship?
Yeah, I was a guard. I worked in the inner city Dublin for a few years, and It was a career that I loved. I've always wanted to do it, and I fought hard to get in and to stay in. But I had to make some kind of big decisions after a few incidents that happened, and I'm in a better spot now. Yeah.
Your life changed.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us what happened.
I was working. I was in night duty, and I came in at around just before 10 o'clock, and normally what you do is you go downstairs, grab your stuff, and go up and get your sergeant to tell you what's happened in the shift before, so you know what's happening. We didn't even make it that far. There was a call holding for a domestic assault. Now, domestics, they're the most kind of volatile situations a police officer or guard can face because they're so personal, and we're kind of an outside body coming in. So we responded as we normally would. And
was this in a patrol car or on foot?
In a patrol car, yeah. So we ran to the patrol car, got in. On the way to the call, we would do our checks to make sure there's no priors. We wanted to know what we were going into before we got there.
And did you feel you were prepared for that, whatever you were going to?
Yeah, there was.
Or can you be?
I mean, look, all you can do is get as much information as you can. That's it.
Yes.
There's no other preparing in that job, and it's the nature of it. So we got as much as we could, and we kind of have to take it as it comes. So we pulled up to the door, and even before we got out the patrol car, the lad opened the door and he had a bat in his hand. So we kind of knew it was still happening, and it was a very kind of emotional situation. So I approached them, and my way of handling things was always by words. I tried to use verbal reasoning skills. It's very difficult to fight with someone who isn't fighting back. So I tried to remain calm and appeal to the human in them, because we don't all want to attack police or whatever. So, but unfortunately this time, it wasn't going that way. He wasn't listening to reason, and it was when he took a baton over his head, I had to take my baton out. And once I armed myself, he ran into the kitchen. Now, a kitchen in a domestic is basically taking a fire to a petrol station. It's everything in that room is a weapon, absolutely everything. But considering there was an injured person in the house, we didn't know if there was anyone else there, so we obviously followed. And then he armed himself with a knife, and it was during that my attempt to arrest him, which I received my injuries. I was pulled out of the house, and I was taken to hospital that night. And
you have permanent damage now as a result of that?
Yeah, so I was cut through my thumb, and the nerves were taken out of my thumb, and then there's a ligament severed in my finger, and it's basically constant 90 degree now. I haven't been able to straighten it since 2010, so I need to get surgery on that. But being an athlete and being 34, I don't want to be digging around in ligaments in my hamstring, so I'm going to wait till after the Olympics to sort that out.
But I think the scars for you, Brendan, were a little bit more deeper. They were a bit more emotional and mental over what happened to you.
Absolutely, and this was all new territory for me. Up to this point, I lived a fairly average life. There was no real issues. I would get upset like everyone else would get upset, but there was never anything that would take away from my day to day. And I went home that night. I got home at around 4 o'clock in the morning, and just told my parents I was fine, blah, blah, blah. Went to bed and had a good night's sleep. But that was the last night's sleep I was going to get for a few years. I started experiencing night terrors. Really, really vivid. We've all had those nightmares where you wake up and it kind of carries with you a little bit, and then you drift back to sleep. I wouldn't be able to get back to sleep. I would have visions of the suspect with the knife standing over my bed. I would wake up thinking my bed is covered in blood where it's my sweat. I would grab my hand trying to stop the bleeding. It was a very, very violent way of waking up, and I eventually stopped going to sleep because I was in fear of these dreams. And the insomnia really, really took a hold of me. It was a gradual thing, and this is what, looking back at it now, I felt I was fine every step of the way, which is the scary thing. I didn't realise that the things that I was doing to try to deal with it weren't actually healthy, and I wasn't exactly reaching out to a lot of people because I didn't think I needed to. So the insomnia, I would drive around Dublin all night to avoid going to bed, and those drives, basically Dublin was too short, so I used to drive to Cork and back to fill the nights, because I just could not go back to that prison of a bed, because it was just too nervous. And what I tried to do was, being an athlete, I would get on let's get back on the horse, get back to it, and teach myself that it was a one-off.
So you were doing skeleton at the time, were you?
No, I actually, like, at that period, I stopped sports because I kind of stopped doing anything that I loved. I kind of stood back and just tried to, exist, really. So there was no energy for doing any sports, any activities or anything like that. So I just kind of fell back on what I was trying to do from sports. So, like, you get injured, you rehab, and you get back. And that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to get back into work, to see, to show myself this is not going to be a continuous thing. And I suffered my first panic attack. Now, I'm an asthmatic, and I thought it was an asthma attack. It's that physical.
How long was this after the incident?
Oh, it would have been, I took at least 4 or 5 months off to let the injury heal. And then I kind of went back in. I didn't stay in for long. I think I was in for less than 2 weeks. I just couldn't. I was hiding in the bathroom for no reason.
Was it the intrusion of the incident and the potential for something to be much more serious, to the risk of your life, that affected you so much? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it was like I wasn't sleeping at that stage, so I just felt everything was a monumental task. Very, very mundane things became such a stressor to me, so I would shy away from it out of just pure survival. And there was definitely a fear of reoccurrence. I can't explain it because, again, the nature of the sport I do now, the fear isn't a factor. But then fear was the controller. It just carried my whole life, and that was the difference. It was making me do things, and it was stopping me from doing what I wanted to do, which was, work.
This sounds to me, and I have a bit of insight into it, like post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, as I said, at the stage I didn't know what it was.
Explain for the uninitiated, because this is important, what post-traumatic stress disorder feels like.
To me, it just felt like there was like a darkness following me. There was a constant heightened anxiety. Everything was do or die. Nothing was just a case of, I'll just go to the shops. Everything was a monumental task for me. I was afraid of going to sleep. I was afraid of going into work. I was afraid of reoccurrence. And I wasn't in a state that I knew what was going on. I was just a constant fear, and I was just bundled up all the time. And that takes its toll, because when you're trying your best to get back, you start getting depressed, and you start getting you start feeling very negative towards yourself. And I felt like a major letdown to my unit, because I wasn't able to work and they had to take up the slack. I felt a letdown to myself because I wasn't able to do the job I loved doing. I wasn't able to get back to work and let go of this one incident. It was just following me everywhere. And day after day, I mean, this was over a period of 6 years. So I tried so hard, and everything I tried just felt like it wasn't working. It was an awful weight.
I won't go into it in too much detail, Brendan, but my best friend died, and I was in 2 inquests. So I have an insight into this, and the way I would describe it is there's your life before, and then there's your life afterwards.
Yeah.
And they're completely different things. I lost my dad when I was 24, and he just passed away with an illness. But somebody trying to understand what you're going through is like, we all have issues, we all have problems.
Yeah.
And a lot of people out there have mental health issues, which is completely normal. I just think it's the same as physical health. If you're a little bit unwell mentally, you just get it treated. There's nothing,
100%.
The stigma has to go. The way I would almost describe, the way I would describe PTSD is that if somebody has passed away, or if there's something bad going to happen, you almost see like the rain coming in from the sea.
Yeah.
The clouds are coming in.
Yeah.
Whereas the way I would describe this is, and maybe you agree or disagree, it's like a thunderstorm that you're caught in, and you're looking for shelter, and
100%.
that you can't find shelter, and the thunderstorm can happen at any moment.
100%.
And it's almost like there's a devil. Sometimes you're fine, and then it can smash you over the back of the head, and your brain's all over the floor.
Yeah.
And that's the way that I would understand what that is. That you actually feel it physically. not just mentally.
Oh, 100%. And that's like, and when I said everything's heightened, that's exactly what I'm talking about. There's no just mundane like occurrences. It's do or die. It's always the worst case scenario, and when it hits you, it takes you off your feet, and you just can't beat it.
And the threat of danger, you know, the startled at noises, it's that kind of fear, and being attacked in your dreams by your subconscious. That you think, you know what, I'm going to go and have a good night's sleep now, but I'm actually getting attacked in my dream, and I can't escape this.
For me, that was the worst. Not being able to sleep on it, not being able to take a break. So this constant high energy, I wasn't able to go to bed and take a night's sleep, a break from it. It followed me into my dreams. It woke me up sweating, out of breath, and then not being able to calm down. It's like you just cannot maintain that level of energy over a prolonged period of time. It's just too much.
So you're going to be hopefully an Olympian in 2022. Yeah. How did you get the support you needed to get out of this?
Well, I got
to deal with it in a way that's manageable.
I got very lucky. So I got to a point where a rational decision, my rational decision was the only thing I could do to take a break was to take my own life. And it was a rational decision. I know it's very difficult for people to understand, but when you're living in this kind of constant thunderstorms, you start trying to think of different ways to get out of it. And I was in that thunderstorm for years. And I got very, very lucky that when I went to take my life, there was someone there who stopped me, and I stood back from the edge. I went to my car, sat down, I cried, and I realised what had happened. I called my friend. We went to Tesco's, and I told him this is what happened. And I told him, I'm not telling you this because I want to have a big long conversation. I want to be held accountable, and I wanted someone else to hear that I'm not okay. And he turned around to me and he just said, go back to the gym, do something that you love doing. And in the friendship type we had, he kind of made fun of me, and that's how our bond worked. But it was like he normalized it. He helped me accept that this is, there's nothing wrong with you. Just get back doing something that you love doing. And I got back to the gym, and it wasn't smooth. It wasn't smooth sailing. It wasn't like I went to the gym and everything was great. But it was the one thing that gave me a sense of direction, a sense of achievement. And one of the turning points was I would have a playlist in the gym, and a song came on my computer, and that made me think, I want to go to the gym. And that was my first step of wanting to be proactive, wanting to look forward to do something that, makes me feel good. And, I kept pushing. Gym here or there led to getting back into track and field, which then I just randomly bumped into my president of the Skeleton Association, which then led me back into this position. And having gone through what I've been through, I want to make a kind of a personal example of, not only is going through troubles, let's say with PTSD or depression, it doesn't make you weak, but I kind of want to show that it's not going to be what the rest of your life is going to be. And not only is that not going to be the rest of your life, you're going to be stronger after dealing with it. It can take time. It's not easy. But when you come out the other side, like, I feel so much stronger now after having gone through all of that. And I'm going to use that to get through struggles that I will come across in my sports and in life.
Is the case with ideation, suicidal ideation, Brendan, that it's not about that you want to die, but it's that it's too painful to live?
Oh, yeah. Yes, and that was my train of thought. I was like, I am exhausted. I cannot do this. It wasn't I wanted to die. It's just I felt in that time I had no other options. 6 years of trying to get back on my feet failed. I was a failure to everybody. I just want a break. I want a timeout. But unfortunately, I couldn't find a timeout, and that was the only solution at that time. If I break a leg, my walking gait is off. If you're going through stress, your train of thought is off. And that's what I went through. I felt at that stage that was my only option, which obviously it's not.
And you're here today, and it's great to see. Bad support networks, alcohol, substance abuse, blinding out the pain. Is that something that you'd be vigilant about?
Yeah. So I grew up directly affected with alcoholism. So I knew how that could bite. Again, it was something that I'm kind of thankful for, because if I had alcohol when I was going through my time, I would be, I doubt I would be here, because I wouldn't have that voice of reason. The way I dealt with it, again, was something that kind of a perpetual engine, like go to the gym, you feel good about it, you want to go back again, and there's no negative aspect to this. Going to a good support network and being honest about how you're feeling and being frank about what's going on was absolutely like the biggest thing that I could have done. Having that small conversation, it was a 5-minute conversation. Do
you have a family? Do you have children?
No.
So it was like your parents, your siblings?
Yeah.
Because I would think that for a lot of people, it is easy if you go through such pain to, I'm going to just blind this out and not actually face it. And especially when we talk about dreams earlier on, I think one of the key things, I read this book by a guy called Bessel van der Kolk called The Body Keeps the Score.
Okay.
About how to manage trauma, and I think yoga is a real part of it, and dance and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And look, not every prescription is the right answer for anybody. It could be that you might take medication, whatever you want, whatever works for you, I think is the key thing. But I think the key thing, Brendan, I would think is acceptance. That you accept that you are worthy, that you accept that you've got something to offer, and self-love. Is important. Would you agree with that, or?
Absolutely. So you talk about the likes of yoga and all these kind of ways to vent energy. It's a constructive way of venting energy. We can't hide from what's inside us. We can't hide from what we think and what we feel, but we can definitely use the energy to calm ourselves down. It took me a long time to get to that stage. It really did. Even after having the conversation, it would be a bumpy ride for me. But I accepted where I was, I acknowledged where I was, and I shared where I was, which gave me the strength and a network to build forward. And that was the biggest thing. I wouldn't have been able to do it on my own. Absolutely not.
So your advice to anybody listening to this broadcast or watching this broadcast would be?
Be honest and share. I mean, I owe it to my friend Donald. He knows who he is. I owe it to him for being that ear and just directing me. He took my hand. He knew what I like to do. He knew what would be good for me, and he just gave me the direction that I needed, because I wouldn't have figured that out myself.
I get a sense of love for what you do, the skeleton.
It's complete passion. Yeah.
And I think that is part of your story. The thread of your story from the early beginnings to being in the police force and the troubles you've had, that you come out the other side with an end goal and love of what you do, and that I think is probably the way I would describe it. When I went to the World Cup in Russia, I was seeing life in black and white, and then I saw the colour again through the joy that I saw in people's faces from all these different countries at the World Cup in Russia. And then I realised walking around this place that this is actually a great place to be, this earth, and to recognise nature and to, inhale what's around me, the most simple things. It could be, a cup of tea or a blue sky or a sun. And there are times when you don't see those things and you do see life in black and white.
100%.
And you are seeing now life in colour through the excitement of your sport.
Oh, I'm seeing it in HD. Absolutely. I'm seeing it in HD. I even so when we finish a run at the bottom of the track, we have to get a bus back up top. And everybody in that bus will be sitting there and they're talking lines and they're talking about their mistakes and, I'm stressed out. And I just literally zone out and I just look at, we're on the side of a mountain in the middle of Vancouver and there's trees and there's snow and I just take it all in. And I just appreciate everything around me. So I still to this day take that time to just go out. I'll even go out to walk in St. Anne's Park. Just literally just to be in the green, just to walk and just detach and appreciate what we've got around us. I 100% agree with that, absolutely.
Does meditation, have you tried that?
Funnily enough, no. I've not. There's a lot of a mental side to our sport as well.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of mind runs. And what we're trying to do is to get our body prepared for the slide. While we're sliding, it's 140 kilometres an hour. I don't have time to think. And we envision the perfect outcome. And I'm working with a guy called Alan Heary who's helped me translate that into other areas of life. So you envision a perfect outcome it helps give you direction, and it's been working. So I mean, we've all had a negative mindset. If you flip that and use that like a positive mindset, it just really helps you get towards a place that you want to be in. You got to believe it.
And you do believe it?
Oh, 100%. I have to believe it.
What's the road going to be now for between you and qualification? How does this work out that you get a chance to go to Beijing?
So basically, we've just finished year 2 of 4. I'm on my off season now. So next year we have plans to be a little bit more performance orientated. We have goals just to compete in North America and get our World Cup spot for Olympic year. And then come Olympic year, it's pick the tracks I'm good on, race the tracks I like, and get the points I need to. The way we qualify for our sport is at the end of the competitive season, our points are added up, and then you're given a seed. And if you're within the top 60, you're given a spot to the games. So right now, I'm taking it on I'm breaking it down. I'm not looking at the Olympic year yet. I've got a lot of work to do before that. And that's just the performance side. I need to also work on the sponsorship side, on the funding side, all these kind of different variables. So right now I'm just finishing off the season, going to do some off-season training for the next couple of months, and then October get back out on ice and train.
When I was at Rio in 2016, I saw Michael Conlon come out upset that he lost his chance. Yeah. And he had the Olympic rings tattooed on his chest.
Yep.
We've had Liam Jago in here announced as the first official athlete for Team Ireland for Tokyo, and you the same, wearing the shirt. You're wearing the 5 rings, the shamrock, and the Irish jersey. And that's something we must be very proud of, just even to put that on.
100%, it's an honour, and I hear it on the TV all the time, but it's an absolute honour because
so it's not a cliche, and that's the thing.
It's absolutely not a cliche, because the amount of work and the amount of hardship you've gone through to get a T-shirt. Do you know what I mean? I could go to Penny's and buy a T-shirt, but the significance of this...
But you see, you can't buy this.
No, you can't buy this T-shirt.
You've earned it, yeah.
But my point would be it's more than just a T-shirt.
Yeah.
It's a
journey.
It's something that you can hold to show that you are making the right steps forward. And again, a part of this solidarity grant, for me, putting wind in my sails, because people are now seeing that this guy's work is going somewhere. He is, we can back him, we believe in him, and that helps me a lot too. So I have a spot ready to get tattooed when I go to Beijing, so I'm ready to go.
Good man, Brendan. Yeah. Well, you're an inspiration. It's been great to speak to you today in the Off the Ball studio and Off the Ball Saturday. I think there's probably something in this for you to talk to people about what you went through and to spread your message. And is that something that you maybe aspire to in the future?
Absolutely. I'm so passionate about this, and I got so lucky, and I don't want anyone else to rely on luck. So if I can share my experiences and sit down and talk with people, I'd be honoured to.
Brendan Doyle, thank you so much. We'll be back after this. Thank you.